Well, just like last week, Jack, we're off to do the show, and you're not even ready yet.
No, don't worry about me, Sammy. I'll be there when you need me. Who are we interviewing first?
Oh, I am so excited. Martin, Landau, and Gretchen. Can you believe it's been a year since we saw them in Spain?
Yeah, I believe it. God, they were lovely, weren't they? And then we're,
Wait a minute, Jack. We'll tell them when we start the show. Any last-minute instructions?
Sammy, your second show, you're a veteran, a pro. Give 'em hell, huh?
Let's go.
All right. Wait! Wait!
In Hollywood, where we're going to have a visit with one of our finest actors, Martin Landau. And we'll be meeting his girlfriend, Gretchen Becker, who's making a name for herself, too.
And then we're going to take you to the Gene Autry Museum, where we will meet and talk to one of Hollywood's best-known cowboy actors of the past. Incidentally, it's a great museum.
Yes, it is. And later in the show, we'll be going to Jack's Corner, where we're going to meet one of the greatest presidents that ever lived.
Who had a wife named Mary?
Yes, he did, Sammy.
Well, here we go to Emilio's in this beautiful 1959 290 horsepower Corvette Roadster. It's a beauty. It'll go from 0 to 60 miles in about 6 seconds. In 1959, this car, brand new, sold for $4,000. Now this one would cost you $60,000. So hang on to your hats. Here we go. Elaine?
Oh, my goodness. I was expecting a cartoon character.
Martin Landau.
This is beautiful art.
Look at
Stuff I dabble with.
Fabulous.
Well, I think this is more than just
As a matter of
dabble.
fact,
This is great.
I was just doing one of Gretchen
Look.
with my magic
With
marker.
your magic marker. Let's see this.
Look at this, Elaine. Maybe we'll do Elaine.
Oh, no,
This is
let's
great.
just stay with... Oh, that's beautiful.
This is great, Martin. Great.
Ah, well,
You know,
it's
that really
something.
looks like you, Gretchen. It does. It does.
Martin, not only do people know you from Mission Impossible and from so many other great movies, but now I see you have another special talent.
Well, I started it. I studied fine arts at Pratt Institute when I was a kid. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I didn't know it was one of the best art schools in the country. It was my local school, so when I graduated from high school, I went there. And then I worked for the New York News when I was 17, while I was still going to school, as a cartoonist and illustrator. So that was my first, quote-unquote, profession.
Well, this is Gretchen Becker. Gretchen is a practicing veterinarian. You were a star college athlete.
Basketball.
Basketball. Where?
That's right.
Where?
Clemson University.
Clemson
Go
University.
Tigers.
Yep. And now you're becoming a wonderful actress. How do you fit all that in, and, you know, how's it going, your acting?
Well, sometimes it tends to fit in together. Like I just did a guest star on My Two Dads where I played a high school basketball coach, so it was right at home for me.
Great.
And it's great to be able to do something like that and to have that feeling of having been there and know exactly what it's all about.
The experience.
Yeah, I think that's really important in acting, to be able to have lived different things, you know, not just to have acted, but to have lived.
Gretchen, have you ever performed in a film with Martin?
Actually, yes.
You're
Oh, yes?
kidding.
No, the first one we did. I mean, the first one that I did. My first film and his worst film.
What is it about one actor or actress that makes them special, that makes you know that they've got it when so many other people try out and they don't have it?
I think it's you're talking about the arts, and you're talking about some particular personal factor. What made a Picasso? What made a Shakespeare? Or what makes a Woody Allen? What makes anybody? I mean, something unusual, rare, and something I think that reaches out and touches a lot of people. I think that's the essential thing. You know, what does an actor really do? He has to, he reflects the times, he plays people, and you know, generally speaking, in any given time, good playwriting should go along, good films or whatever should go along. In other words, there should be good writers at that moment in time, so that a good actor can, in fact, mirror what is happening and, in fact, what will be happening, allowing people to examine themselves sometimes or see things from a perspective they may not necessarily be able to within their own lives. And that's why, you know, Shakespeare works to this day because it's so powerful, and when well acted, is illuminating. People walk out having had not only an emotional experience, but some stuff that affects the gray matter too, hopefully.
Well, I want to tell you, we are delighted to have spent this time with you, Martin, and you too, Gretchen.
Martin, you have a fabulous, exciting life. You have a thriving career. A gorgeous girlfriend.
Oh, thank you, Elaine.
Thanks.
You're on a roll, Martin. You're on a good roll.
That's
Yes,
it.
I am indeed.
Great.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Back in the early 1950s, I received an urgent phone message from the then reigning Queen of Hollywood, Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn had just seen a film that I was in, and she wanted to talk about it and talk about acting technique. So we arranged to have lunch at 20th Century Fox, where she was shooting a film called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. When I arrived on the set, Marilyn, who was dressed in a one-piece black bathing suit and was wearing heels about 6 inches high, was up on a platform about 10 feet high, and they called lunch, and she came down the temporary staircase sinuously, and all of these guys standing there, including me, didn't talk. In fact, we didn't breathe. And she landed, walked over to me and said, "Hi." And then she put her pinky in mine, said, "Shall we go?" And I said, "Are you going to go like this?" She said, "Why, don't you like me this way?" And I said, nothing. So we walked to the restaurant. 1 block away, it took about 6 months. And we walked through all of these guys, the producers, who dropped their teeth, their toupees, their checkbooks. We got to the restaurant, and they put us at the table right near the entryway. Marilyn had made the phone call. And then we walked back through the same group of lecherous disciples who were waiting for the second coming. I took her back to the stage door, said goodbye. We said we'd meet again to talk about acting once more. And I went home. That night, I got a message from a friend who had to tell me a story. He'd been at 20th Century Fox that day, and he'd seen Marilyn Monroe. He says, "Champ," he said, "I got to tell you, she was in this black one-piece bathing suit, and she had on heels that were about 12 inches high." He says, "Now listen, I've seen things in my life, but this," he says, I just don't know how to tell you. You had to be there." So very timidly, I said, "Skip, or was anybody with her?" And he said, "Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah, I think so." He said, "But why the hell would you mention that? Who cares?" I didn't say anything else.
Hey, there's no water here.
Yeah, I know.
There's no fish either.
So how come you're never with Elaine?
I'm always with her. We do the show together.
So then she like dumps you?
What the heck does that mean? I'm married, she's married.
Where's your wife?
She's at home with the kids.
Oh, would those be your kids? Or...
Now, wait a minute. That's going too far.
Yeah, well, I think you have an ego problem.
I don't believe this. I don't believe it. Debbie, whose are the kids? I mean, how are the kids? Yeah?
If I could have anything in the world right now, I think I'd choose happiness.
Uh-huh, so?
My second choice would be this car.
Wow, that's the same thing, isn't it?
Oh, I guess so. Look at this. It's an American classic with the rear-mounted wheels and those little porthole windows and the hardtop. And...
Wait, let's say it together. The original owner was
Gene Autry.
Coincidence, huh?
That we're on our way to the Gene Autry Museum.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Sammy, you know we're going to meet the sculptor later.
Gotta be a real big guy.
Boy, are you going to be surprised. This mural depicts how the West was won. First, we have the Hollywood version of the cowboy. Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, John Wayne, Gary Cooper.
And there's Tonto and his friend.
We have Tom Mix, William S. Hart.
Elaine, these people were all before my time.
Were they really? And over here we have the real cowboys. We've got Annie Oakley, Sitting Bull, Buffalo Bill. And Sammy, who is that guy standing in the corner?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Congratulations, you're right.
Thank you.
Oh, and Sammy, look at Billy the Kid. And here's Charlie Russell, the famous artist.
And who are all these people?
These are generic figures.
What?
These represent all the spirits of the people who headed west.
Tell me, why were all these people heading west?
Gold, Sammy. Gold was discovered in the 1850s out here, and everybody started heading west. They came on horseback, in wagon trains, they came on the big train.
Tell me, were all these buffalo always around?
There were millions of buffalo.
What happened to them?
Progress.
I see. That's a beautiful coach.
Ooh, yes, it is. What about this one?
Fantastic. And Elaine, those people look so real in there.
They do. Come here, look at these horses.
They look so real, too. And Elaine, no buffalo.
Right behind you, Sammy.
Wow. Were they always this big?
Full grown they are.
Left them a $1 tip.
What a guy.
Hey, that was a lot of money back then.
Still is, isn't it, Sammy?
I think so. Wow.
Did you see the movie camera up there?
Yeah. Elaine, how about that guy with the gun over there?
Oh, I see him. And who's that tall, handsome guy coming toward us?
Elaine.
What?
Why do they always have to be tall and handsome?
Well, because they're not short and handsome like you. Come on.
Hey!
Hi, Monty
Elaine.
Hale. Hi.
So you found your way
yes,
in here,
we
okay.
did. Sammy,
Sammy.
Monty Hale and his wife are the curators for this fabulous museum.
Thank you for everything. Pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you, sir.
Oh, it's
Thank you.
wonderful letting us wander through here like
Excuse
this.
me, will you? Excuse
where
me?
you going?
Yeah, where
We're
you
gonna ride that horse.
Well, get on him.
Oh, that will be the only horse that Sammy ever rides. I
Is that
think.
right?
Now, I know that Monty Hale was a big Western star a few years ago.
6'4".
6'4".
That's all.
How many films did you make?
I made about 112 or 13 altogether. Not counting the TV and stuff like that. I made a lot of those.
Oh, my gosh, you really did work a lot.
Some
Hey,
young
Mr. Hale.
folks. Hey.
Did you ever work with Mr. Autry?
No, I never did work with Gene, but I've known him about half of my life.
Oh.
I've known him a long time, Sam.
Thank you.
Good friends. Being from Texas, of course, I was a big Western fan.
Yes.
And I remember the Missourians and the Old Frontier. What was your favorite?
Well, one of my favorites wasn't the one I ever starred in. It was Giant with James Dean, Liz Taylor. And
Fabulous. Well, everybody was a star in that movie.
You're from Texas?
Yes, I am. West Texas, and you are from...
I'm from San Angelo.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's great. Sammy, get off that horse.
Hey,
Okay.
Thank you so much, and you be sure
Thank
and
you.
tell your wife that we said thank you, too.
I will. I'll
Okay.
sure do it. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye,
later.
Mr. Hale.
Let's go.
Adios.
That's the giant, Sammy.
Where?
That young woman. Her name is Della Spree.
She did that sculpture?
Yes, she did. Hi.
I can't believe it.
What?
That you did this sculpture. It's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have a lot of works at the National Heritage Gallery on Rodeo Drive, don't you?
That's right, and I hope you'll come by and see me.
Oh, we'd love to, wouldn't we, Sammy?
I'd love to.
And as a matter of fact, Sammy, I'd love to do a bust of you.
A bust?
A sculpture of your head.
Can we do it on a horse?
I think we could do it on a pony.
You just come by and see me.
We'd love to.
Oh, gosh, it was nice to meet you.
Nice to have met you.
Pleasure meeting
Thank you.
We'll
Bye.
see you at the gallery.
Okay.
How'd you like the museum, Sammy?
I loved it, Elaine. I loved it. I feel I learned a lot about your country, the West. I even like that tall, handsome guy.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because you're about to learn a few things about another tall man, one of the most beautiful men that ever lived.
You're kidding.
No.
Was he married?
Yes, to a woman named Mary.
I see.
You still don't know.
Elaine, I'm from Pennsylvania.
What does that mean?
That's not far from Illinois.
Thank you for this, for being here. Your story of life, love, and tragedy is one of the most beautiful ever lived.
You think of tragedy as beautiful?
Yes. I mean, from this vantage point, of course. To live through it is obviously quite different.
Yes.
Mrs. Lincoln, it was written then and many times since that you were the most vilified of all our first ladies. The attacks on your character were so vicious that in August of 1861, the Chicago Tribune exclaimed, "Hold, enough." It continued that had you been a convicted criminal on the way to execution, you could not have been treated more indecently. How were you able to cope with this senseless character assassination?
Mr. Lincoln,
Nothing can hurt us ever again, Mary.
I forgot. When our son, Willie, died, he was only 11 years old. The poisoned arrows of the press became ineffectual. For the first time, I knew what real sorrow meant.
Yes. You had 4 sons. Was Willie the first to die?
No. Edward died when he was 4.
Despite these personal tragedies, the press gave you no respite, no peace.
When Mr. Lincoln was elected, I expected so much more. I was so proud. For me, he was the greatest man who ever lived. And perhaps I was too proud. They called me vain, corrupt, crude, wasteful, stupid even.
The truth is, or was, that Mary was extremely intelligent, well-educated, quick-witted, and at all times a tremendous source of inspiration to me.
But you had your quarrels.
Yes, of course. We were 2 individuals, 2 totally separate entities living together. If Mary was vain, then so was I, and so are we all. And I believe so should we be. To a certain extent. I mean, we had a marvelous life together, Mary. And tragic and yet exciting. By the by, did they ever find the man who...
Yes. Oh, yes. They trapped him in a barn right outside the theater. He was an actor.
Oh? An actor?
Yes. Can you imagine?
Please forgive me, I must interject this. Our last president was an actor.
Oh. Was he successful as a president?
Yes, he served 2 terms and was one of the most popular presidents ever.
Well, and his wife?
Oh, she too was an actress. Popular as a first lady, but perhaps misunderstood. Incidentally, Mr. Lincoln, this actor was a Republican.
Well, Republicans are very capable. Eh, Mary?
Yes, I think so. We had 4 sons.
Oh, I must ask one more question. Why, Mrs. Lincoln, were there suggestions and actual accusations that you were disloyal to the United States government?
The charges were ridiculous. The President of the United States was my husband. I believed as he did. I was an emancipationist and a devoted unionist.
She was also my adored wife. I could never have lived with her had she been a traitor to our cause.
As perhaps you might not have known.
Mr. Lincoln knew everything.
Forgive my seeming insistence, please. But why were there any accusations at all?
I was born in Kentucky to wealthy parents. My father owned many slaves, as did most of his friends. Our friends. When the bank of which my father was president had a major reversal, he had to sell his slaves at public auction. Unfortunately, he made no restrictions about the breaking up of families. It seemed cruel. Well, it was cruel. That was when I left Kentucky. But some people never forgot. They thought I was to help the Confederacy, supplying my old friends with secret information. It was not true. I was Mrs. Mary Lincoln, wife of the greatest man who ever lived.
Mary, it's all right.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Lincoln. I would not mention that again.
But do you believe me?
Yes. Yes, I must. Because you have come here to help us understand.
Thank you.
After listening, I find it difficult to comment, so I'll see you next week. Sammy?
Yes?
How did you like Martin and Gretchen?
They were fabulous.
Elaine? Next week?
Michael Bell, the voice impressionist from Hanna-Barbera, and Yingling Brewery, the oldest brewery in the United States.
Sammy?
Yes?
Are you hungry?
I'm starving.
Elaine?
I'm famished.
Jack?
I am ravenous. Let's go.